Older men often miss the quiet signs younger women give when they're interested, not because they lack value, but because they're listening for the wrong signals. In this video, I break down the exact questions younger women ask when they secretly want to take things further with you. Most men panic when these questions come up. They explain too much. They defend their life. Some even lie. And that's why attraction fades. I'll show you how to handle each question with calm confidence, clear presence, and no apologies. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding psychology and standing firm in who you are as a man. When you're an older man, attraction rarely shows itself loudly. It appears quietly, through curiosity, timing, and simple questions that sound harmless if you're not paying attention. These moments usually happen when the conversation feels easy, when there's a pause, when she leans in and asks something that doesn't quite fit small talk. That's the opening, and most men close it without even knowing they did. Most older men don't miss opportunities because they lack value or experience. They miss them because they are reading the moment through the wrong lens. They expect attraction to look obvious, direct, or expressive, and when it doesn't, they assume nothing is happening. When a younger woman is interested in an older man, she almost never makes it obvious. She doesn't chase, she doesn't flirt loudly, and she doesn't put herself in a position where rejection could embarrass her. Instead, she moves carefully, subtly, and with awareness of the social dynamic. This is where many men become confused because they are waiting for signals that will never come in that form. Age changes the dynamic completely. Younger women who are drawn to older men are usually not looking for excitement, chaos, or emotional highs. They are looking for calm, stability, and certainty. They want to feel grounded inside the interaction, not overwhelmed or pursued. That grounding is what attracts them in the first place. Because of this, interest doesn't show up as obvious attraction on the surface. It shows up as curiosity. She asks questions, often simple ones, and then she pays close attention to how you respond. What matters more to her is not the content of your answer, but your tone, your calmness, and your emotional steadiness while answering. If you don't understand this dynamic, you can say all the right things logically and still fail emotionally. On paper, your answer may sound correct, polite, or even impressive. But emotionally, the moment can collapse if your presence feels uncertain or performative. Another major reason older men miss these signs is hesitation. When they sense a shift in the interaction, they start questioning themselves. They wonder if they are misreading the situation, if the age gap makes things inappropriate, or if they are projecting interest that isn't really there. That doubt doesn't stay internal. It leaks into their voice, their posture, their timing, and their body language. And the moment a younger woman feels that uncertainty, she instinctively creates distance. Confidence does not mean pushing forward or forcing anything. Real confidence means being comfortable with what is happening without needing immediate certainty about the outcome. It means staying relaxed even when you don't know exactly where the moment is going. Over-explaining is another common mistake. Experience gives older men stories, lessons, and history, but attraction doesn't need a resume. When a younger woman asks a simple question and you respond with a long explanation, the interaction shifts. What was a moment of connection turns into a monologue. She wasn't asking for information. She was feeling for your emotional center. The more you talk, the harder it becomes for her to feel grounded in your presence. Many men also mistake politeness for neutrality. Younger women are often warm, respectful, and attentive by default. But when that warmth becomes focused, when the questions turn personal, and when the timing feels intentional rather than random, something has shifted. Missing that shift is where most men quietly lose the moment without realizing it. Another blind spot is projection. Men often assume that if a woman is interested, she will act the way a man would. She won't. Her risk is different and her social cost is higher. Asking questions allows her to explore interest safely. If she doesn't like your response, she can pull back without embarrassment. That is why the question itself matters more than the answer. Finally, many older men underestimate their own presence. They downplay their calm, their experience, and their ability to lead a moment. This often shows up as self-deprecation or unnecessary humility. It feels safe, but it destroys polarity. Attraction needs contrast. When you shrink yourself, the moment collapses. Once you understand why these signs are missed, everything changes. You stop replaying conversations in your head afterward. You begin recognizing interest while it is happening, in real time. And that awareness is where the real shift begins. The first question she asks, and what she's really checking. The first question a younger woman asks usually sounds harmless. On the surface, it feels like normal conversation. She might ask about your day, your routine, your work, or what you're doing later. To most men, it sounds like casual small talk, nothing important. But emotionally, this question carries weight. She is not asking because she needs information. She is asking because she wants to feel how you move through your life. This question is a quiet check of direction, self-assurance, and inner stability. When a younger woman asks this, she is already imagining where you might fit into her world, even if only for a moment. She wants to know whether your life feels intentional or scattered, calm or chaotic. Many older men misunderstand this moment and immediately start explaining. They list responsibilities, schedules, achievements, or reasons why they are busy. They believe sounding occupied or important will increase attraction. In reality, this urge to justify weakens it. The moment you feel the need to prove your value, your presence becomes tense instead of grounded. What she is really listening for is ease. Does your answer sound relaxed, as if your life already makes sense to you? Or does it sound rushed, defensive, or overly detailed? Confidence here does not sound loud or impressive. It sounds settled. A simple, clear answer delivered without tension communicates far more than a long explanation filled with effort. This first question also tests how you handle subtle pressure. There is often an unspoken awareness that the interaction could shift into something more. Men who feel that pressure tend to overshare or rush toward plans. They try to lock the moment down too quickly. That doesn't feel decisive. It feels anxious, and anxiety is something younger women instinctively pull away from. Another layer of this question is availability. Without asking directly, she is sensing whether there is emotional space in your life. Younger women who are drawn to older men are not looking to compete with unresolved past, bitterness, or chaos. If your answer feels heavy, cluttered, or defensive, she feels it immediately, even if she can't explain why. Tone matters more than content here. You could say very little and still pass the test if your delivery is calm and grounded. You could say all the right things and fail if your energy feels tight. That's why rehearsed answers don't work. Presence does. A brief pause before responding shows comfort and self-control. It signals that you're not scrambling for approval. Many men believe they need to impress at this stage. That belief is backwards. Attraction is already present. Otherwise, the question wouldn't exist. Your role is not to increase it. Your role is not to break it. When you answer simply and allow silence to do its work, her curiosity stays alive. When this first question is handled well, something subtle shifts. Her body language softens, the conversation slows, and the tension becomes relaxed instead of awkward. That's how you know alignment is happening. This question sets the tone for everything that follows. Handle it with calm awareness, and the interaction naturally deepens. Miss it, and everything stays polite, safe, and emotionally flat. The second question, what it really tests. By the time the second question appears, the interaction has already moved beyond surface-level conversation. This is no longer small talk. At this stage, she is not asking because she wants facts or details. She is testing how you handle emotional pressure and subtle tension when interest is already present. The second question often sounds casual and indirect. It might be framed as a general curiosity about your habits, your experiences, or how you usually approach certain situations. On the surface, it feels light and ordinary. Underneath, it carries an emotional test. What she is really listening for is composure. She wants to feel whether you are grounded in yourself or reactive to the moment. This is where many older men lose the connection without realizing it. They hear the question and immediately feel the need to explain themselves. They justify past decisions, give long personal stories, or overshare experiences in an attempt to sound open or impressive. The mistake is not honesty. The mistake is turning a moment of emotional testing into a performance. Younger women who are drawn to older men already assume maturity and experience. They don't need proof. This question is simply a way to confirm that the calm presence they are feeling is real. Experience does not need to be announced. It shows itself through clarity, restraint, and ease. When an answer feels rushed, defensive, or overly detailed, it signals insecurity rather than confidence. Timing matters deeply here. A man who answers too quickly often appears nervous. A man who becomes defensive appears uncertain. A man who talks too long appears as if he is trying to manage the moment instead of being present in it. None of these responses feel emotionally safe. What feels safe is steadiness. A brief pause before answering often communicates more confidence than the answer itself. This second question also tests boundaries. She is observing whether you can feel interest without losing control of yourself. Attraction does not require eagerness. In fact, too much eagerness creates imbalance. Younger women want to feel that the man in front of them can remain centered even when curiosity and attraction are in the air. What you say matters far less than how you say it. Your tone, your pacing, and your body language are doing most of the communication. Many men fail here because they answer the question correctly in words, but emotionally they signal tension or uncertainty. The shift that follows is often silent. The conversation continues, but the curiosity fades. When this question is handled with calm awareness, something subtle but powerful happens. Her interest stabilizes instead of pulling away. The interaction begins to feel smoother and more connected. This moment quietly determines whether attraction deepens or dissolves. Understanding this second question is critical because once it appears, the direction of the interaction is already being decided in real time. The third question: when she's thinking about intimacy. When the third question appears, the dynamic has already shifted. At this point, her interest is no longer just curiosity or testing. There is an awareness of intimacy in the air, even if nothing explicit has been said. This question often sounds casual and almost innocent, but underneath it carries a sexual undertone. She is not asking because she needs clarity. She is asking to observe how you handle attraction when it becomes more charged. What she is really watching is your reaction. This question is a test of comfort, not knowledge. She wants to see whether you can recognize sexual energy without panicking, apologizing, joking nervously, or retreating. Many older men misunderstand this moment and assume they need to respond directly or carefully manage the situation. They either over-explain, deflect with humor, or act overly cautious. All of these responses drain the tension she has quietly created. Younger women who are drawn to older men are not looking for someone who escalates quickly or performs confidence. They are looking for a man who can stay grounded when intimacy is present. Control here does not mean control over her. It means control over yourself. Your ability to remain calm, steady, and aware signals emotional maturity and masculine stability. Timing is especially important in this moment. A short pause before responding shows awareness and self-control. It communicates that you are not rushing to prove anything or escape the tension. Your tone matters more than your words. A relaxed, confident delivery shows that you understand what is happening without needing to push it forward. This question also tests boundaries. She wants to know whether intimacy with you would feel safe, natural, and unforced. By asking subtly instead of directly, she gives you space to respond authentically. If you stay composed, you create a quiet sense of permission and polarity. If you become tense, performative, or uncertain, the moment fades without explanation. Consistency also matters here. How you handled the first and second questions sets the foundation. By the time the third question appears, she is responding not just to your words, but to your overall presence. This moment amplifies everything you have communicated non-verbally. It is not about sex itself. It is about how you handle closeness and desire without losing your center. Most men fail here because they try to prove themselves or avoid the moment altogether. Both extremes kill attraction. The correct response is subtle awareness and calm acknowledgement. When handled well, curiosity turns into possibility. When mishandled, the opportunity disappears quietly. Understanding this third question is critical because it marks the transition from interest to potential intimacy. It is the point where attraction either stabilizes and deepens or pulls back permanently. A man who can stay grounded in this moment naturally stands apart without saying much at all. Why these questions are never random, and what her tone really tells you. By the time you notice these questions appearing, it is important to understand one core truth. They are never random. A younger woman does not casually drift into these questions without intention. Each one appears at a specific moment, shaped by curiosity, emotional testing, and growing attraction. Even when the words sound casual, the timing and delivery are deliberate. Most older men focus only on the words being spoken. They listen literally and respond logically. What they miss is the emotional layer underneath. Tone, pacing, and timing often communicate far more than the content of the question itself. A question asked lightly, with warmth or a relaxed tone, usually signals comfort and curiosity. A question asked more slowly, with softer energy, or lingering eye contact, often signals deeper interest. These cues matter because they reveal intent without requiring her to say anything directly. The sequence of the questions is also meaningful. The first question is about direction and self-assurance. The second tests emotional stability and composure. The third explores comfort with intimacy. When these questions appear close together, it is not coincidence. She is moving through a quiet internal process, evaluating how safe, grounded, and aligned your presence feels to her. Treating each question as an isolated moment means missing the larger pattern. Context is everything. Her body language, posture, and attention tell you how invested she is. Leaning in, sustained eye contact, and focused attention are signals of interest. A more guarded posture or withdrawn energy can signal caution. Many men miss these signs because they expect attraction to look obvious, playful, or flirtatious. With younger women and older men, attraction is often subtle and controlled rather than expressive. Another important factor is safety. These questions allow her to explore interest with low risk. If your response feels off, she can pull back without embarrassment or confrontation. That is why many men feel confused afterward. The interaction didn't end badly, but it didn't move forward either. The moment passed quietly because the emotional signal was missed. When men treat these questions as high-stakes moments, they often overperform. They talk too much, explain too deeply, or try to manage the interaction. This pressure collapses the subtle tension that attraction needs to stay alive. Calm awareness, on the other hand, preserves that tension. When you stay relaxed and attentive, you allow the moment to unfold naturally. Understanding that these questions are deliberate changes everything. You stop guessing and start observing. You listen not just to what she says, but to how she says it. Every question becomes information, not confusion. That awareness gives you an advantage most men never develop because you begin responding to the moment instead of reacting to the words. Once you recognize the pattern, attraction becomes easier to navigate. The interaction feels clearer, slower, and more grounded. And when you understand the role of tone, timing, and sequence, you stop missing opportunities that were never random to begin with. How most men answer these questions wrong and accidentally shut the door. By this stage, many older men believe they are doing everything right. They are polite, honest, and attentive. They feel they are responding respectfully and thoughtfully. Yet, despite good intentions, the interaction slowly loses energy. Attraction fades, not because of something dramatic, but because of small, repeated mistakes that quietly shut the door. The most common mistake is over-explaining. When a younger woman asks a simple question, many men feel pressure to justify themselves. They talk about their work, their responsibilities, their past experiences, or their achievements. They believe that giving more information will make them appear more interesting or more secure. In reality, it does the opposite. Over-explaining signals nervousness and a need for validation. Instead of feeling grounded in your presence, she begins to feel that you are trying to manage her perception of you. Another frequent mistake is using humor to escape tension. Some men sense that the moment carries weight and respond by joking, laughing, or deflecting the question. While light humor can sometimes ease a situation, using it to avoid emotional presence communicates discomfort. It tells her that you are not fully at ease with the moment. Younger women are very sensitive to this shift. What feels safe and attractive is not entertainment, but calm awareness. Emotional reactivity is another way men accidentally break the connection. When interest becomes noticeable, some men become defensive, overly cautious, or visibly unsure. Others swing in the opposite direction and become too eager. Both reactions create imbalance. Attraction requires steadiness. The moment you react emotionally, instead of remaining present, polarity weakens. Rushing is another subtle but damaging mistake. Many men interpret these questions as signals that they must act quickly. They push the conversation forward, make plans too fast, or try to escalate before the moment is ready. This urgency feels anxious rather than confident. Younger women drawn to older men are attracted to patience and control, not speed. Perhaps the most overlooked mistake is ignoring tone and energy. Men often answer the question correctly in words, but fail to respond to the emotional moment. If her tone was warm, playful, or intimate, and your response was flat, tense, or overly logical, the connection breaks. Attraction is emotional, not analytical. Missing that emotional layer is enough to end momentum without either person saying anything explicitly. These mistakes explain why confident, capable, and successful men still miss opportunities. It is not about lacking value. It is about misreading intent and responding from habit rather than awareness. When men learn to slow down, speak less, and stay grounded, these questions stop being traps. They become invitations. Understanding how men answer wrong is essential because it reveals that attraction is rarely lost in one big mistake. It is lost through small signals of tension, over-effort, and emotional misalignment. Once you see that clearly, you stop shutting doors without realizing it. How an older man should respond in real time. When you begin to recognize these questions in real time, the interaction is already active. At that point, attraction does not need to be created. It needs to be protected. The biggest shift an older man must make is understanding that his role is not to impress, explain, or control the outcome. His role is to stay present and grounded in the moment. The foundation of every correct response is calm awareness. When the first question appears, the goal is not to give a perfect answer. The goal is to remain relaxed, A simple, honest response delivered without tension communicates direction and self-assurance. There is no need to expand, justify, or decorate your answer. When your life feels settled to you, it sounds settled to her. When the second question appears, emotional control becomes the focus. This is where many men overthink. They try to sound mature or experienced by adding detail. In reality, emotional steadiness speaks louder than explanation. Responding slowly with a calm tone and clear intention shows that you are comfortable with interest without needing to manage it. You are not reacting, you are responding. When the third question arrives, sexual tension is present, even if nothing explicit is said. This is not a moment to escalate or retreat. It is a moment to stay steady. A composed response, delivered without apology or nervous energy, signals that you are comfortable with intimacy and closeness. You do not need to push the interaction forward. Your calm presence already allows it to move naturally. Throughout all of these moments, consistency is critical. Attraction weakens when your energy shifts suddenly. One nervous response, one rushed explanation, or one defensive tone can undo the stability you have built. Younger women are not just listening to individual answers. They are observing the pattern of your behavior across the interaction. Equally important is your ability to read her tone and body language. If her voice softens, if her attention becomes focused, if her posture leans in slightly, these are signals. Responding to those signals does not mean saying more. It means staying present, slowing down, and allowing space in the conversation. Silence, when used comfortably, often does more work than words. Older men who handle these moments well do not rely on scripts or techniques. They rely on awareness. They listen carefully, speak deliberately, and remain comfortable with uncertainty. They do not rush outcomes, and they do not try to lock anything in prematurely. This patience creates trust and attraction at the same time. When you respond from this place, attraction deepens without effort. Curiosity remains alive. Tension stays natural instead of awkward, and the interaction unfolds at its own pace. This is how older men move through these moments with confidence, clarity, and control, not by doing more, but by being fully present in what is already happening. Attraction rarely ends in obvious ways. Most of the time, it fades quietly, in small moments that feel ordinary if you don't understand what you're seeing. The questions a younger woman asks are not casual conversation. They are signals. Signals of curiosity, signals of testing, and sometimes signals of real interest that is waiting to see how you handle it. When you understand what these questions truly represent, you stop guessing. You stop replaying conversations in your mind, trying to figure out where things went wrong. Instead, you become present in the moment where attraction either deepens or disappears. That presence changes everything. This is not about forcing outcomes or trying to control another person. It's about staying grounded in who you are. Calm confidence, emotional steadiness, and self-awareness create more attraction than explanation ever could. When you no longer rush, perform, or apologize for your life, your presence naturally becomes more compelling. Take this awareness with you into real life. Listen carefully. Pay attention to tone, timing, and energy. Speak less, but speak with intention. Allow space in conversations instead of filling it with nervous effort. When you do this, attraction doesn't need to be chased. It unfolds naturally. Remember, the man who sees clearly never needs to rush the outcome. He stays steady, lets moments develop on their own, and trusts his presence. And that is what quietly sets him apart.